Hey everyone, welcome to the channel, where we dive into iconic moments in history and pop culture. Today, we're exploring the thrilling legacy of James Bond, the legendary British spy who's captivated audiences for decades. And then switching gears to relive the unforgettable energy and spectacle of the Queen's performance at the London 2012 Olympics. So, buckle up for a journey through spy glamour and royal showmanship. Let's get started. I don't even know how to start this, so I'll just say it. I'm James. Yes, like that James. And yes, the name is partly a joke. I'm not actually MI6, but I was the body double for Daniel Craig in that Queen Elizabeth stunt for the London 2012 Olympics. You know, the one where James Bond escorts Her Majesty to the helicopter and parachutes into the stadium? Yeah, that was me. I was a stuntman. Not glamorous, not licensed to kill, but I could drop out of the sky with a stiff upper lip and make it look damn sexy. That was also the day I met her. Emily was a production assistant on the event. Smart, sharp, the kind of woman who made you feel like you had to stand up straighter when she walked into a room. We hit it off over fish and chips in a tent behind the security cordon. I was still wearing a parachute harness. She called me her Bond from that day on. Fast forward 11 years. We're married, 2 kids, a semi-detached in Surrey, and I'm now doing fight choreography for Netflix shows. Life should be good, except it hasn't been. For a while. It started subtly, like most betrayals do. Emily became short with me. Everything I did seemed to annoy her, the way I chewed, the way I folded laundry, even how I tied my boots before taking the dog out. She started working late. Then came the girls' weekends, which felt more like a script than reality. I trusted her, blindly, like an idiot. But even the best spies eventually see the pattern. One night, she came home from one of those weekends. Her hair was still wet from a spa. She smelled like smoke and someone else's cologne. "James," she said, not looking me in the eye, "you're suffocating me." I blinked. I had just spent the whole weekend with the kids while choreographing a bar fight for a new series. Suffocating? That was the first real crack. But it gets worse, much worse. A few days after that weird, "you're suffocating me" moment, Emily left her phone on the kitchen counter while taking a call outside. I wasn't snooping. I swear I wasn't. I was making sandwiches for the kids when it buzzed. It was a message preview. Just a few words, but they were enough to knock the air out of me. "Can't stop thinking about last night. When can I see you again?" I stared at it like it was a prop in a bad thriller. It was from a guy named Jay. Just Jay. Ironic, considering my name's James. It didn't take long to figure out it wasn't me she was texting. My heart dropped into my stomach. Everything else around me blurred. The kettle whistled. The dog barked. But all I could hear was the blood pounding in my ears. I know people say your gut knows when something's wrong. I think mine had been screaming for months, but I was too caught up in being the supportive husband to listen. I clicked on the message thread. I wish I hadn't. Dozens of flirty, borderline obscene texts, some with photos, all dated over the past few months. Hotel meetups, inside jokes, mentions of me, of our kids. One message said, "He's so dense. Thinks I'm still into him." It's honestly sad. That one cut the deepest. I just stood there, holding a butter knife, like some idiot in an apron with no idea his world was burning down behind him. When she came back inside, I didn't even know how to move. I think I mumbled something about needing air, and I walked outside without my coat. Just stood in the cold, staring at our hedge, breathing like I'd just done a high-altitude jump again. That night, I didn't say a word. I couldn't. I kept replaying that one text, "He's so dense. Thinks I'm still into him." I watched her as we ate dinner. She laughed with the kids, told me the salmon was dry, it wasn't, and acted like nothing was wrong. It was surreal, like I was watching a performance. And she was damn convincing. But I wasn't going to let it go. The next morning, after the school run, I waited until she sat down with her coffee. My hands were shaking, but my voice was calm. Too calm, maybe. "Hey, I said. "Who's Jay?" She looked up, just for a second, then sipped her coffee like I'd asked her what time her next Zoom call was. "Jay? Who?" "The guy you were texting about last night." Boom. Eye contact shattered. A flicker. Just long enough for me to know I was right. She tried to laugh it off. "Oh my God, James. That's Jen. From Pilates." She was talking about her boyfriend. I was just passing along the message. "Yeah. Okay. Jen from Pilates. The one who's too busy for texting." I'd met Jen. She barely spoke in full sentences. I said nothing. Just stared at her. Watch the gears turning in her head, the little twitch in her jaw she gets when she's caught. She backtracked hard. Okay, fine, she snapped. It was a joke. A stupid one. You're seriously going to interrogate me over a joke? When I told her I'd seen the other messages, her face dropped. She didn't cry. She didn't even apologize. Instead, she got defensive. Maybe if you weren't so obsessed with your work and pretending you're still some big deal stuntman, I wouldn't have to look elsewhere for attention. That one hit me right in the solar plexus. Suddenly, I was the problem. She turned it around so fast I had whiplash. Gaslighting 101. And the worst part? Part of me believed her. For a second. I felt like a fool. After that fight, we didn't speak for 2 days. She slammed doors and stomped around like I had wronged her. Meanwhile, I was walking around the house like a ghost, thinking about all the moments I missed, all the signs I dismissed, and the lies she wrapped in that sweet smile of hers. But I couldn't let it go. Not until I knew who Jay really was. So I did what no one ever wants to admit they've done. I went full Bond, not the cool tuxedo version, but the one who's dead tired and desperate. I synced her iPad to the cloud. She always left it in the kitchen drawer. Guess what popped up? Emails. Turns out, Jay was Julian. Julian Fletcher. Let me paint this picture clearly. Julian is a producer I met on set during a Netflix pilot that got scrapped mid-shoot in 2021. I introduced them. I literally shook his hand, said, "This is my wife, Emily," while holding our daughter in my arms. He laughed too loud, complimented her energy. Now I know why. Their emails were way more personal than their texts. Talking about meeting at some boutique hotel so the kids don't ask questions. Sharing Spotify playlists. Emily even sent him a selfie from our bed while I was out teaching our son how to ride his bike. The worst part? There was one email from him saying, "You're too good for that washed-up Bond wannabe. You deserve a real man." A real man? I wanted to put my fist through the screen. I didn't, because the iPad wasn't mine. But in that moment, I saw red. All I could think was, I brought this snake into my home. I made coffee for him. I trusted her. I felt like I'd been living in a movie set. Everything looked real, but it was all fake behind the scenes. I waited until the kids were asleep. I needed it to be quiet, uninterrupted. She was in the living room scrolling through Instagram, acting like we weren't living in a house on fire. I sat down across from her and placed the iPad on the table. The screen lit up. Julian's email opened. Her face froze. "Anything you want to say?" I asked. No sarcasm. No raised voice. I just wanted honesty finally. She stared at the screen, then back at me. No tears this time. No frantic denials. She leaned back, exhaled, and shrugged. "Fine. You found it. What do you want to do? Throw a fit? Kick me out? Go ahead." That was it. No apology. No guilt. Just pure, ice-cold indifference. "You've been sleeping with him in our bed," I said, my voice cracking in spite of myself. She rolled her eyes. "It's not our bed, James. You've barely touched me in 2 years." That was a lie, and she knew it. We weren't at our honeymoon phase anymore, sure, but I was there. I was trying. I planned weekends. I brought her flowers from the market just 2 weeks before that. She posted a photo of them with the caption "Feeling loved bouquet." Now I realized that was probably meant for him. I asked her how long it had been going on. She said almost a year, with the kind of bored tone you'd use if someone asked how long you've been on hold with customer service. "I didn't plan it," she added. "It just happened." Right. Affairs always just happen. Like tripping and falling into someone's hotel room over and over again. That's when I felt something I didn't expect. Not rage, not heartbreak, but disgust. I looked at this woman, the mother of my kids, and realized I didn't know who she was anymore. And maybe I never did. You think you're being quiet. You think your voice is low enough. But kids, they have radar for tension. We were still in the living room. Me sitting rigid in that godforsaken IKEA chair, her lounging on the couch like she hadn't just detonated a bomb in our marriage, when I heard the small creak of stairs. Our daughter, Ava, was standing halfway down in her pink pajama top, her stuffed bear in one hand, eyes wide. "Daddy, are you mad at Mommy?" And just like that, everything inside me collapsed. Emily jumped up, suddenly full of motherly instincts. "Sweetie, it's okay. Mommy and Daddy are just talking. Go back to bed, okay?" But Ava didn't move. She just looked at me, like she already knew something was wrong, even if she didn't understand the words. I went at her, picked her up, and carried her back to bed. She laid her head on my shoulder and whispered, "Are you going away?" That almost broke me. I told her no, that I wasn't going anywhere, because I wasn't. I wouldn't let her mom's lies pull me out of their lives. But in that moment, I also knew the house wasn't going to be the same. Our family wasn't going to be the same. I tucked her in, kissed her forehead, and closed the door. Then I just stood in the hallway, hands shaking, forehead against the wall. When I walked back into the living room, Emily didn't say a word. She just looked at me like I was the one ruining everything. I said, "You didn't just betray me. You broke something in them too. And they didn't deserve that." Her response? A shrug. Kids bounce back. I had no words that I didn't sleep that night. Not even a minute. I lay there, next to the woman I used to dream about growing old with. Now a stranger, while I stared at the ceiling, counting every breath like it might help me forget. It didn't. By sunrise, I had decided. I needed to talk to him. Julian. The man who thought he could crawl into my life, my family, my wife, and act like he was better than me. So I found his number, still saved in my contacts from that pilot shoot. I stepped outside into the driveway, hands trembling, heart pounding like I was defusing a bomb. I hit call. He picked up after 3 rings. "Hello," I said, flatly. "It's James." A pause. "Oh." Another pause. "Look, man." "Don't call me man." I said it sharper than I meant to. "I know everything. I saw the emails, the hotel receipts, the photo from my bed." Silence. I let it hang. I wanted him to feel it. Finally, he spoke. "I didn't mean for it to get serious." That was his excuse. Didn't mean for it to get serious. I laughed, bitterly. "You told her I was a washed-up Bond wannabe. Said you were a real man. Real men don't hide in other men's marriages like cockroaches." He tried to defend himself. Said she told him we were basically separated. That she said I was cold and emotionally abusive. I almost dropped the phone. "You've met me, Julian. You think that's true?" His voice got smaller. "No, I don't know. I got caught up. Caught up." I told him to stay the hell away from my kids. That if I ever found out he was near them, it wouldn't be another phone call. He said he understood. He even apologized, sort of. But it felt like someone apologizing for stepping on your shoes, not wrecking your marriage. I hung up. I didn't feel better. Just empty. It's amazing how quickly lies spread, especially when they're dressed up in just enough truth to sound believable. A few days after the Julian call, I started getting weird texts from mutual friends. Short, passive-aggressive. One said, "Sorry you couldn't be the man she needed." Another just said, "You should have tried harder." What the hell? So I reached out to Jess, one of Emily's oldest friends, someone I'd always gotten along with. I asked her point blank, "What exactly has Emily been telling people?" Jess hesitated, but then she dropped it. Emily had told them I'd been emotionally neglectful for years, that I made her feel small, that I mocked her career, didn't support her goals, and treated her like a roommate. Oh, and here's the kicker. She told them I had probably been cheating, but she never wanted to invade my privacy. The projection was Olympic level. I couldn't believe it. Not because I thought she was incapable. I'd seen enough by now to know better, but because I didn't think she'd have the gall to drag my name through the mud while she was the one playing house with Julian. And apparently, she was painting the affair as a moment of weakness, that we were on a break, and Julian just happened to be there for her emotionally. Ross and Rachel, huh? Except we weren't on a break. We were married, living under the same roof, sharing grocery runs and daycare pickups. She was lying through her teeth. It was the gaslighting that broke me. Not just the affair, not just the emotional whiplash, but this revisionist history where she was the victim. I started doubting myself. Was I really that distant? Did I do something wrong? But every time I asked those questions, I kept coming back to the truth. No, I was there. She just stopped choosing me, and then rewrote the script so she could be the hero. At first, her parents circled the wagons. I guess I shouldn't have been surprised. Emily always had them wrapped around her finger. She was the golden child, the one who could do no wrong, even when she did very, very wrong. Her mom called me a few days after everything came out. I was hoping maybe she'd want to talk, really talk, but instead, I got this tight, cold tone, like I was being summoned to court. "I just don't understand, James," she said. "Emily says you've been distant for years, that you barely look at her anymore. She's been crying every night." Crying? Probably from laughing too hard in Julian's arms. I told her the truth. I explained everything. The emails, the hotels, the Instagram DMs. I even offered to forward the evidence. Her mom brushed it off. Every marriage goes through things. Maybe if you had been more present. That's when I hung up. First time I'd ever done that to her. I didn't yell. I didn't swear. I just put the phone down, like I was finally done playing along with their version of the truth. But then, plot twist, her dad called me. Alone. He was quiet for a while, and then he said, I saw the emails. Turns out Emily had accidentally synced her iCloud to the family iPad last Thanksgiving. Yep, Thanksgiving. When we were all smiling at the dinner table, she had sexted from Julian lighting up the notifications like Christmas lights. Her dad had just stayed quiet. Said he thought it was a mistake. Didn't want to believe it. But now, with everything blowing up, he looked again. I'm sorry, he said, and for the first time, it sounded like someone in that family actually meant it. He told me he didn't condone what she did, that he raised her better than that if I chose to leave, he'd understand it. And more than that, he'd support me. He even offered to help with the kids if I ever needed someone to lean on. That call didn't fix anything, but it reminded me not everyone was buying her story. And I wasn't crazy. There wasn't a big screaming match. No final straw. No dramatic slap or last-ditch confession. Just silence. A week after talking to her dad, I walked into the bedroom, saw Emily scrolling on her phone, probably texting Julian, and realized, this is over. And it had been, for a long time. I was just the last one to accept it. So I grabbed my suitcase from the closet. Emily looked up, barely lifting her head off the pillow. What are you doing? I said, I'm leaving. Just for now. I need space. You need to face this without me as your distraction. She rolled her eyes. Oh my God, you're being so dramatic. Dramatic. Right. Because wanting basic respect in a marriage is apparently Oscar-worthy behavior now. I packed slowly, methodically. Underwear. Socks. 2 suits. One framed photo of Ava and Jamie from their last birthday, not of us as a couple, just them, because I needed a reason to remember what I was fighting for. When I zipped the suitcase, she sighed loudly. You're really gonna break up the family over one mistake? I froze. One mistake. Emily, I said, voice shaking, you lied to me for months. You invited another man into our lives. You let him play with our kids, sleep in our bed, eat at our table. That's not one mistake. That's a campaign. She didn't answer. Just turned her face toward the wall like I wasn't worth looking at anymore. As I walked toward the door, Ava peeked out of her room again. Her voice was small. Daddy, are you leaving? I knelt down and hugged her tight. Just for a little while, baby. I love you. I'll always love you. And then I left. I drove aimlessly for about 20 minutes before pulling into a cheap hotel off the interstate. The sheets were rough. The air conditioner rattled like an old motorcycle, and the lighting made everything look like a crime scene. But I slept for the first time in weeks. I thought the hardest part was behind me. I'd left, I'd faced the betrayal, and I was starting to pull myself together. But no. The real nightmare started when Emily decided to rewrite the story for the kids. Ava came to me one afternoon, looking confused and scared. Daddy, Mommy said you don't love us anymore. She said you left because you didn't want us. My stomach dropped. I tried to explain gently that Mommy was upset and said things that weren't true. That I loved them more than anything. But Ava's little face was clouded with doubt, and honestly, who could blame her? Then Jamie started acting out at school. Teacher called me to say he was withdrawing, refusing to participate. When I asked him what was going on, he said, Mommy says you don't care. It hurt more than I thought it would. I confronted Emily, and of course, she denied it at first. Then she said it was for their own good, that they needed stability, and me being away was too confusing. Too confusing? The truth wasn't confusing. The truth was painful, and she was trying to shield them by pushing me away. I realized the betrayal wasn't just about her and me anymore. It was about protecting my kids from the damage her lies were causing. I had to step up, harder than ever. After the kids started echoing her lies, I knew I couldn't do this alone anymore. I was drowning in anger, sadness, and that crushing feeling of betrayal. So, I swallowed my pride and called a therapist. Honestly, it was the hardest thing I've ever done. Sitting there, peeling back years of hurt, admitting my own flaws and failures, it was brutal. But it also felt like the first breath of fresh air I'd had in ages. Therapy gave me tools to handle the emotional roller coaster. It helped me separate what was her doing from what I needed to heal. I started journaling, too, writing down my thoughts, my pain, even my small victories. I also leaned on my close friends more than I ever had. Some of them had been through messy breakups, betrayals, And they didn't judge me for the dark places I went to. They listened when I needed to rant, distracted me when I needed to laugh, and reminded me that I wasn't alone. Bit by bit, I started feeling like myself again. The guy who once dreamed of a future with Emily, but now knew he deserved better. I thought the legal battle would be straightforward, split time fairly, protect the kids. But no, Emily had a few tricks up her sleeve. First twist, she hired a slick lawyer who tried to paint me as unstable. They dug into my past, exaggerated moments when I'd lost my temper, which, yeah, I admit happened, but nothing like the portrayal. Suddenly, the man who had always been there for the kids was the risk in the relationship. Then, out of nowhere, a surprise witness appeared, Julian. He claimed he was just a friend and tried to say I was the one pushing Emily away. The audacity. But the biggest shock? Emily suddenly suggested mediation. Said she wanted to put the past behind us for the kids' sake. I was suspicious but agreed. Mediation was a mess. Lots of blame, lots of half-truths. But it also gave me a chance to speak openly, to show the judge the evidence, the emails, the lies. In the end, the court gave me shared custody with more visitation time than I dared hope for. It was bittersweet. The trust was shattered, but at least I could still be their dad, fully, not just on weekends. After the custody battle, life didn't suddenly become sunshine and roses. There were plenty of dark days, nights filled with doubts, and moments when I wondered if I'd ever feel whole again. But I started focusing on myself and the kids. Weekends became sacred picnics in the park, movie marathons, little soccer games in the backyard. Their laughter slowly began to patch the holes Emily's lies had torn in our world. I went back to hobbies I'd shelved. Guitar, jogging, even took up cooking, because apparently, burnt toast is better than no breakfast. I reconnected with old friends and made new ones. I started dating again, cautiously at first, then with growing confidence. And maybe most surprisingly, I found gratitude. Grateful that I was out of a toxic marriage. Grateful for my kids' resilience. Grateful for the chance to write a new chapter. Emily's betrayal broke me, but it didn't define me. If you're reading this because you're dealing with betrayal, heartbreak, or the slow unraveling of a relationship, here's what I want you to know. Trust your gut. If something feels off, don't brush it aside. Early signs matter. Don't let anyone gaslight you. Lies sound convincing, especially when wrapped in half-truths. Keep evidence if you can. It helped me stay grounded. Seek support. Therapy, friends, family. You don't have to carry this alone. Opening up is hard, but healing starts there. Protect your kids from the conflict, but don't hide the truth completely. Age-appropriate honesty matters. Kids sense tension and lies. It confuses and hurts them. You can survive this. The pain feels endless at first, but life does go on. You can rebuild. You will rebuild. Self-worth isn't tied to a partner's choices. You are valuable, loved, and deserving of honesty and respect. My wife, Emily, was a master at lies and manipulation, but her betrayal taught me how strong I am when stripped down to my core. If you're in the storm right now, hang on. There's light ahead.